Hello everyone, welcome to I Am Aware, News, Faith, Opinion, Debate, and Truth. I'm your host, Wolfman Jake, and the big, very controversial abortion issue has just continuously heated up over the last few months. I guess it really started with the push for a few of those bills, right, where it was, basically right up to birth, or even, in the West Virginia instance, after birth abortion, or whatever the heck and all this. So, it kind of started there. And then, of course, there were a lot of these heartbeat bills, which started coming up, which, basically if the child's heartbeat can be detected and everything, then, there can't be an abortion and all this in some states. And then most recently, or at least as I'm shooting this video most recently, Alabama, of course, has passed a bill basically almost, outlawing abortion altogether, outside, of course, of the case of a threat to the mother's life, I believe it is. And I think it's funny that a lot of the people were pointing out that not a single woman voted in the state legislature to pass that bill, and yet it's a woman governor who signed it. So I don't know. I guess, whatever. Okay, no women supported it except for the main one that actually signed it, but whatever. But anyway, it's a big deal. It's coming up a lot, and it's been going for a while, and really it's not even the Alabama thing that made me want to shoot a video on this, because again, things are pretty crappy out there in general, and I do like to try and keep it light, as much hard and terrible crap and dark kind of messages I'll put out there that's like, hard truths and all that. I do like to try and, maybe keep you from jumping off a bridge after some of our videos and posts and all. So, but the thing that really got me was this whole thing with Alyssa Milano, and I hope you'll excuse the southern turn of phrase and all, but bless her heart, because, man, she just keeps jumping out there in these things, and this one I thought was hilarious when I saw it. I'm still waiting to hear that it was, from The Onion or one of these joke sites, because it's hard to believe that this was really her plan. But apparently, they announced this whole thing that since there's all these anti-abortion laws, we're going to have a new thing to where, women need to start this movement where until they allow abortions again freely, we're going to stop having sex. So stop having sex until we get abortion back. And, look, let's be honest. Generally, the anti-abortion, the pro-life people are more, religious, moral type of, people like that. And if your answer, your big solution to fight them is less rampant sex, you're not hurting them. I guess I can understand the point of the fact of, maybe try and get all these men who don't support it but don't speak against it to speak against it and try to get enough push to overthrow it, But, all these guys looking for a one-night stand or whatever, we're not going to give it to them until they speak out on abortion too. I guess that's the idea of it, but, seriously, it's just stupid. It's almost like, we're going to defy Hitler by killing all the Jews so he can't kill them anymore or something, It's like, you're kind of, you're helping the person you're trying to hurt in this instance. I don't, your plan is flawed, it would seem, but again, as a religious person myself and everything, okay, sure, cut down on the constant sleeping around and rampant sex, you know, and especially you, Hollywood. Yeah, crack down on it. Cut that stuff out. Heck, maybe, you know, these poor girls out here can actually get through, you know, middle school without thinking they need to, you know, sleep with 5 different guys just to be popular or worth a crap, you know. So yeah, go ahead. Change that. Change that aspect. Take that part out of the culture. Ooh. Us religious people are really going to be upset if you do that. So you push against that hard, you know. Sure. Cool. Nice work. Anyway, that to me, though, I mean, you know, again, we can get into the rest of it a little bit, but that was just really the kicker for me. Just sitting there and watching this and like, really? No sex until we get abortions. Well, you know, if you're... okay. Okay. Fine. I mean, you know. But, anyway, I guess back to the more serious nature of the story. Yeah, you know, there's all these heartbeat bills. There's all this stuff. There's the big time abortion bill from Alabama that was signed into law, not just put up, you know, they signed that in and all, and I mean, what? Who all's involved in this now? I think Kentucky and Ohio and Alabama and Georgia. Tennessee was putting something up like that, but it hasn't gone into legislation yet or anything, I don't think. So, anyway. But, you know, it's a big push. And, you know, frankly, again, religious person myself, of course, I have that bias, I suppose, and I'm sure all the super feminist pro-abortion people will say, I'm a man, and that's why I'm against it, but whatever. You know, not really. You know, it's more the morality thing, you know, than anything, but anyway, whatever, you know, you gotta paint your enemies how you gotta paint them, so whatever. But, you know, it's a positive thing, I think, you know, for the places that are doing it. It's a positive thing. Again, given the times we're in, given the problems we're facing, and if, again, you followed, you know, my posts and my videos or anything for any amount of time and really looked at that, you know, morally speaking, politically speaking, logically speaking, pretty much any way you can look at it, we're looking at a pretty rough time here right now, and so, you know, with all this crap going on, you gotta feel, anybody religious has to feel a little bit better that there's somebody out there somewhere actually starting to push back and say, you know what, no, we're not for, you know, infanticide, which, again, post-birth abortion is not an abortion. That's, you know, I mean, what, if some guy's 32 and I put a bullet in his head, is that a post-birth abortion or whatever? I mean, it doesn't work like that. What, I mean, where is the line exactly? And that's an important issue because, you know, you keep seeing I've seen all kinds of people and all kinds of arguments. The real point is, where exactly does this embryo, fetus, whatever, when does it become a human being? And that's really, that has to be the final point of the argument. And I know that they want to turn it into a my body, my right, whatever kind of thing, but it's not. You know, because again, I mean, you know, once you're affecting another life, it's not just your body, your choice. You know, it's, and again, that's why you've got a lot of places where if somebody kills a pregnant woman, they're charged, you know, with a double homicide, and rightfully so. You know, so I mean, that's really the core issue of this. Beyond all the hype, beyond all the feminist protest slogans and, you know, whatever else, the main point is, when exactly is a human being a human? You know, and is it at the heartbeat? Is it at, you know, a certain time period during, you know, prenatal, whatever, you know, is it a 6-week thing or whatever? Or is it when they come out? Or is it specifically if they come out and take their first breath? I mean, you know, do they have to be smacked and cried before they're a human being? I mean, where is that line? What, you know, what is it that people are thinking? Where are people drawing this line? And that's the ultimate thing. And if you think the baby's not a baby until it's out, Seriously. I mean, you might want to try to look up some stuff about, the actual abortions. And I know I've heard multiple cases. I guess I should, for journalistic value, try and look them up and watch them for myself, but I really just don't care to see it. I mean, I'm not offended by gore and violence necessarily, but, watching a little kid, chopped in pieces, not really my bag, Just like all these slasher movies where they just cut all these ditzy women in bikinis or whatever, not really my thing. If you want to have it, do it like Aliens or something. It's a fight at least. I don't know. Anyway, again, not my thing, but look these things up, because I know I've heard many stories and about videos that were out there at least. I don't know if they've been banned or taken down at this point, but there were plenty of things out there where they have the ultrasound footage of the abortion, and there's a lot of these cases where they start putting the instruments in there, and the little infants, fetuses, whatever inside are kind of start swatting at it and trying to fight it off, because well, the parents aren't protecting it, so the poor thing's in there trying to fight for itself. Of course, it doesn't have much of a chance at that, So, anyway, I mean, seriously, if you don't think it's a kid until it's out, you might want to look up that kind of stuff. And I'm not even saying this as, you need to follow my political side or my religious values. I'm saying, really, screw everybody's point of view, screw what people think. You need to get this right. You need to understand. You need to really look and say, when is a human being a human being? When does that start? Okay? I know, of course, there are plenty of people who will say at conception, and I know that they did this whole thing where they've, through all these x-rays, super zoom microscopes and all this, they found that there's like a little spark when the sperm and egg connect, and that's fine, I mean, hey, I could probably pretty well fall into that group myself, yeah. Once that process is started, if it is, not screwed with or tampered with, that's going to be a human being, So, I mean, it's just, as soon as that happens, it's the potential for human life is there. It's absolutely positively there, So, again, I think that's the first thing people need to do. I don't care if you're for it or against it. You really need to stop and say, when does a human being become a human being? When does a fetus, an embryo, whatever, actually count? Right? And that's an important distinction that needs to be done. And again, especially, I will say, because you're the ones arguing that they shouldn't have the right to life or anything, those of you who are pro-abortion should really look at it and really take that in, because it's an important part of this argument, right? It really is. So, just something to look at, something to consider, and if we can get at least some kind of, actual set, this is when a baby is a baby, at least we can figure out something at that point, right? Then we can at least, both sides can come together and say, well, once we both agree it's a living being, maybe we don't kill it after that point. Maybe, yeah, So, just a thought. Maybe. So, but I mean, there's of course a lot more to it, and I know back when I did this page, less on the religious side, and I would, I still had my beliefs, and I still believe they're right, because I've always had the belief that God isn't stupid, and, He would make His laws and rules and everything for a point. So, if, this is a bad thing, there's obviously logical reasons. So, and again, alright, you want to look at the world today, let's take morality out of it completely, let's do all this. What do you got? We've got declining numbers overall, birth rates declining and dropping in the United States and really throughout the West and much of the industrialized world, honestly. It's just slowly starting to slow, and to, birth rates are just going down. They just are, in places like the Middle East and, you know, Southeast Asia or, you know, stuff like that, it's not so much. I think South America, I don't remember if South America's generally going, I mean, I'm sure different countries are doing different things, but still, I think in general, I don't recall. I think it's growing. Don't hold me to that one. But anyway, but you think about that. Okay, let's just look at it again from a, let's just say Europe, America, or whatever, Western point of view, right? Because that's where you're mostly having this huge push to support abortion and fight against any abortion laws and everything is in the Western world. So let's look at it from that point of view. Your birth rates are declining, your people are going down, and especially for you in America, you're angering China, the nation with 2 billion people plus. You know, you've got a president who has started an unlimited conflict, whatever, in Yemen, who's upping, you know, a bunch of the back and forth and everything with Iran, sending more troops closer to Iran, maybe starting crap there, already setting up potential bases to send troops into Venezuela, and now he's also messing with China and this whole trade war, and China has 2 billion people. To put that in perspective, years ago, I'm sure it's even more now, but I think the Chinese Women's Reserve Army was around 360 million, I think, which, if you're counting, that is a few million over the entire United States population, and that's just the Reserve Women's Army. Okay? And I think we're all aware of the fact that with their whole one-child policy that they've actually rolled back recently, which, again, something else I always said, you know, when you see that child policy start to roll back in China, you got to know they're getting ready for conflict because they're wanting to have greater numbers to be disposable, you know, for conflict. So that's probably maybe coming into play anyway. China may be already getting ready for that. But anyway, you know, the point is, we already know that for the most part they have a tendency to, yes, abort their female children because they all wanted a male to carry on their name or whatever and all this. So, you know, if their women's army, despite the fact that they are, you know, generally unwanted women, you know, female babies and everything, you know, if that's bigger than your population, how big do you think the rest of it is? I mean, you know, they if they really, and I mean if they really wanted to put together their whole army and point at us, anybody, man, woman, and child that they could actually arm who has been through some kind of Chinese military training, which, if I'm not mistaken, is pretty much most anyone, because I think it's part of life there, right? You go through service. Not really a bad idea, I would say, but, you know, anyway. So, if they could actually equip most of let's just say half of their population could be mobilized into an armed conflict. Okay, 1 billion people. Yeah. Okay, put that together. And then again, what's another place where it's growing? The Middle East, where you have many conflicts, where you have many bad groups of people rising up and, you know, dragging more children into their ranks and, you know, indoctrinating more people with that. How does that go for you? I mean, seriously. Europe, America, Western world, you're wanting to fight to destroy more potential lives in your countries while your populations are already declining and you're starting crap and making enemies or just have enemies of people whose populations are super increasing. Do you understand how that could be a problem for you down the road at all? I mean, I'm sure some of you don't care, and, you know, if you're hardline extremist in one way or another, maybe you think America's evil and it should be destroyed. And okay, if that's your line, fine, but again, logically speaking, that's really a potential issue for people here, yeah? You know, all your enemies are growing and you're dwindling. And I know people always like to say, well, hey, the Chinese aren't that good. I mean, I've heard all kinds of things knocking them and their military equipment or their simple ability to see, which kind of seems like an old, kind of racist propaganda like they used to have for the Japanese, where, like a monkey wearing giant bottle cap glasses because the Japanese can't see, they got squinty eyes, and so it kind of seems like that when people go on and on about, well, the Chinese aren't, none of them can see, like, and again, when you got 1 billion people versus 300 something million, and how many of them actually will fight? How many of them actually can fight? How many of them are completely unarmed and hate the fact of fighting or the idea at all and will put up zero resistance to that army? I mean, really? Really? What are you looking at there? I mean, they could just march people into a meat grinder for 1.5 years probably and not even take a dent in their numbers. Do you really think that it matters that much if they're slightly less equipped? I mean, you want to bring nuclear bombs into it, fine, but outside of that, you got a pretty bad numbers game playing out anyway. And I mean, again, it's been done through history. You've seen the lesser numbered people be taken down and wiped out, and maybe that's what's coming anyway. Maybe that's unstoppable. Maybe all this is just being led and is part of a bigger plan across, greater minds and beings than ours to bring about something along those lines. And if so, so be it. But for those of you here now, you really might want to think a little bit more. I mean, really think about all the issues and everything that is involved with every little thing. Because every little aspect, every little issue has such a wide scope of what it could possibly affect and everything down the road, right? So, maybe worth looking at. Again, key things. When does a life start, and at what point do you start maybe worrying about the fact that you're declining and could be overran? Just a thought. So, and I mean, that's just one little part of it. One little thought that I keep, kind of going back to, like, again, logically, given how things are right now, declining population is not really your friend. Of course, if you look at other aspects, I understand, I know people argue with me constantly on it, but, the economy's not really solid. Certainly not stable. If you want to say it's good, fine. You can't say it's stable in a good place, though. So, I mean, you can make arguments that, more people could be an hindrance right now, but, well, I'm just saying, wide scale with everything going on, again, that one-child policy over in China being rolled back and all, maybe not a great time to really make a heavy push for declining your population even more. But anyway, and again, okay, so what's another thing? Might as well hit a few more bases on this, right? The whole choice thing and women's right to their body and women's right to choose and all that. Okay, fine. That is a fine argument, but I do have to ask, again, in part, because when does that child's life matter, but, didn't you, again, and outside of the horrific incidents of rape, which, again, if you've listened to me at all or anything, you probably know I'm absolutely fine with executing rapists, so, I'm not pro-rapist, I'm not light on that at all, if you have an actual given rapist, done. No need to keep them around, right? But anyway, so outside of those instances, though, I mean, didn't you make your choice? Didn't you make the choice that got you into the situation where you became pregnant? And now your choice affects this other potential life, who, again, if nothing is done to them, if it's unimpeded, that will be a human being. That will be a life. So you are effectively ending a life, even if you don't want to say it's alive now, everything through its natural course, that's a human life. It absolutely will be. Yes? So, you know, where does that choice really come? I mean, because that's a big deal. It's one thing to say, oh, your right to swing your fist ends at the tip of my nose. Well, okay, somebody breaks that, okay, you get punched in the nose. Big deal, I've felt that a few times. It's not a big thing, really. But, when the choice is your right to choose your lifestyle or do what you want, doesn't end at the termination of an otherwise, potentially healthy or productive life. I mean, that's a pretty hard statement, isn't it? Because that is, again, unimpeded, that is human life. Even if you don't feel that it's to a stage where it is viable yet or whatever, it is still, if it's left alone, if it's left to its natural course, that is a human life. It will be, So, I mean, it's a really hard line to take. And I know that it seems like the Democratic Party's wanting to push that and in that direction more and more, that it's like up to birth abortions and everything. It's like, that's a really rough kind of spot to take, And I know I've heard, there's been so many comments again as this story, or as this issue has come up again, I mean, there's a representative in Ohio, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that said, these kids aren't going to be loved, so you can either kill them now or kill them later. And I've seen other people put out, well, hey, a lot of these kids are going to grow up poor, and so why bring them into the world anyway? They're just going to end up as foster kids or in poverty. And so, of course, in my mind, the logical argument to that is, well, if these potential lives, if these potential children are invaluable and just they have no value, they have no worth, and they should be terminated because they will probably be poor and probably not have the best of life, then why would you not go ahead and just round up all the foster children or all the homeless people or whatever and just execute them on the spot? Just wipe out the problem now. Why not? What's the difference? If we're really worried about taking care of the poor issue, if we're worried about, people living lives that aren't, absolutely awesome all the time, why don't you just kill everyone below the poverty line? Just round them up and execute them and say, well, their life sucked. And let's unilaterally decide on our own, without their input whatsoever, that because we don't think that their life is worth living, we're going to execute them. Why not? Why not? Right? And the same thing, okay, and it's similar to that other argument, oh, they won't be loved, so, kill them now or kill them later. I mean, it's just, again, you're just determining that they're worthless, that their life is pointless, that it's going to suck before it's even began. So what's the difference? Kill them off, right? I mean, damn. And again, rolling back around to the religious angle, back when God wiped out Israel and brought the Babylonians in to just kick their crap and tear them down, pretty large army from a foreign place, to the east that came and attacked and wiped them out, Who knows if such a thing could happen again, but, billion Chinese sounds like a pretty formidable army, but hey, when that happened, when that was going on, that it talked about how the people then were taking their children and throwing them into a furnace and sacrificing them to, Moloch and all this stuff, and it was a terrible thing, and God was very displeased with it, of course, but it kind of seems like today we're pretty much doing that same thing, except you're sacrificing it to the God of your own frivolous life, your own party lifestyle, or your own, whatever it is that you're trying to preserve, whatever carefree, whatever it is that you would rather have instead of letting this human being be born. You're sacrificing people to nothingness. to your own, to like worship of yourself and your own whatever you want to be. I mean, it's just, you know, seems a little off, a little problematic, a little immoral, maybe, you know. And don't get me wrong, I understand there's a lot of people out there that have problems, but again, you know, okay, you're financially strapped and everything. Maybe you should really be, you know, not taking that risk in the first place. As Alyssa Milano now says, hey, you know, the risk is too great to get pregnant. If we can't have an abortion, then maybe we should stop having all this frivolous sex. Maybe you should have in the first place. You know, I mean, if you're in a position where you can't take care of a child or you don't want a child, maybe you shouldn't do the one act that is generally known to bring forth a child. You know, maybe just a thought. You know, and I'm... again, another random argument that seems to pop up. Well, why is it always on the women? Well, what do you want? You know, tell the guy no. Again, I'm all for killing rapists if they try something afterwards. Just say no. Why is that a problem? Why, you know, why has society become such a way that, you know, not screwing at any possible chance, at any whim or urge that you possibly have? When did that become, like, the deal? You cannot deny yourself, you know, any kind of carnal pleasure. Not at all. No one can. It's inhuman to think anyone could possibly not do that, you know? Like, seriously. Alright? And yeah, if you want to come at me with that, sure. Hit me. I've done nothing. I know nothing, I do nothing, so, whatever. Badassest virgin you've ever seen, yeah. But anyway, seriously, when did that become unheard of? When did that become impossible? To just, you know, hold off for a little bit. I mean, jeez. You wonder why relationships are so problematic and marriages fail when you're out there, you know. You've each slept with 10 or 20 people before you even get married, and now it's like, well, you know, anything that comes up and suddenly, you know, ex-boyfriends and girlfriends start coming into it, right? I mean, it's just, it doesn't have to be this way. It causes more problems and more heartache and more issues than you possibly gain from that, you know, whatever, 10 to 15 or whatever minutes of ugh, feel good, ugh, you know, seriously. I mean, have some restraint. Be a human being. We're not animals. You're not some filthy creature rolling around in the mud in a jungle or something. You're a human being. You're supposed to be intelligent. You're supposed to have a brain and be able to use it. But no, whatever. We're past that stage of humanity, right? Humanity lost or something, right? Anyway. But yeah, so just some points. Just some things I kind of have to throw out there. I mean, you know, no is still an option. You know, delayed gratification. I know this society doesn't care for that at all, but it's a thing, you know. It can be a positive thing even. But no, let's not do that, you know. And again, you know, is what Planned Parenthood itself has put out there. Hey, you know, we want every woman to have, 4 abortions by the time they're 30? Cool. That sounds like a great goal. And again, I won't even get into it myself, but you should really look up who Margaret Sanger was and her actual goals when she started Planned Parenthood. It was not about helping people. It was not about, you know, making sure, you know, families could, you know, not worry about an extra child coming in when they just couldn't afford it. It was more, you know, taking care of those unwanted people. And if we can't legally wipe them out once they're grown, born adults, hey, let's get them in the womb, right? Let's exterminate these certain peoples that we don't want around anymore. That was kind of the main goal. And really, you know, the whole eugenicist thing and people like that here in the 20s, it actually kind of, you know, helped Hitler become what he became. You know, he got a lot of ideas from those people here. People like Margaret Sanger. So, you know, just saying, all points you could maybe look at before you start going off on your frickin' crusade for or against or whatever, you know, before you roll yourself into this whole argument and get so upset with it, maybe you should really know everything that it's about and everything surrounding this issue, that, and, you know, throughout time, and what it means, and why these things exist, and where they started, and, you know, facts are good. Knowledge is good. Information is a positive thing. I mean, you know, it's the reason I always say do plenty of your own research. Don't just believe me. Don't just believe, you know, frickin' Wikipedia or CNN or Fox News. Don't believe anybody. You know, listen to all sides and figure it out. That, you know, it's important to know things because, you know, you just might figure out that you're believing something that is ridiculous or wrong or untrue or just something that actually, if you knew what you were talking about, you wouldn't believe at all or you wouldn't agree with. I mean, it's just, so it's important to know. It's important to understand every aspect of this, and it's kind of a big issue. It's the issue. There are literally lives on the line with this issue. Okay? So, and I don't just mean your fun single party life that may be sacrificed for the sake of a child, you know. Actual potential human lives are on the line every day with this, you know, and I mean, you see things like, I don't know, more black children are aborted than born in New York. I mean, that's, again, Margaret Sanger, I'm sure, is really happy about it, but, you know, for people like myself, that's not really a good, happy stat. That's a fairly disturbing thing, you know? So, but whatever. I mean, it's gonna go how it's gonna go. I really encourage people to think about it, though. Learn about it and understand the whole issue. Just saying. And again, no's an option, people. No's an option. I mean, you know, again, morally speaking, I don't know if, you know, taking care of business yourself is really better, but, well, it's not necessarily moral in itself, but I'm sure, you know, God can be more forgiving of that than he can, you know, you wiping out all his kids because you don't feel like taking care of them because you just couldn't keep it in your pants. But whatever. Again, just saying. But anyway, so, yeah. Beyond that, one final little note that kind of goes back to the main thing I've been talking about lately, and the main thing that I'm really going to get into again, I guess, soon. I wasn't going to do the whole Watchmen series over, but it's such low quality and glitchy and crappy. And these seem to be working pretty well, and, you know, kind of feel a little push from upstairs to go ahead and do it again. And I think I've got just enough time still here in the temporary studio and all this crap before, you know, so I should be able to get that in. So I'm going to go ahead and do that probably again. But in line with that message, again, for you religious people, like I've said, there's a lot of similarities here right now to, you know, what you saw in ancient Israel. And again, if you've followed this at all, and not to undercut the series if you haven't seen it yet, but, or, you know, will want to watch the new version of it that should be coming out, I don't know, and start in a few weeks maybe, hopefully. See how things go, but, you know. But again, not to undercut it, you know, this nation did, as much as people like to deny this truth, you know, it did start as a very, very, very religious and Judeo-Christian nation. I mean, hardcore. And, you know, so much so that, you know, upon our founding, George Washington himself was, you know, urging all the people to fast and pray to create a covenant between the United States and God, and so that he would bless this country and help them to fight off the British and grow. And, you know, if you know history, you know, we did fight off the British and, you know, did become a heck of a country there for a while. So, you know, again, like Israel, you start with a covenant. Of course, God chose them. We went to God in the American case, so it's a little different, you know. But still, You start your nation with a covenant to him, you call upon his name to build yourself, and then you turn into what we've got today. You know, and I'm sure plenty of you will argue against me on this too, because I've ran into you on social media and the like, you know. I say we could potentially go down the road of ancient Israel, and I'll get some stupid comment like, well, God told Abraham, or, you know, he would spare Sodom and Gomorrah if there were just 5 good people there, and I think we have that covered. Yes, that's fine. Also, God is all-knowing, all-seeing, and all-understanding, and he happened to know that there were only 4 people in Sodom and Gomorrah worth saving. You don't think he knew that? You don't think he was in line? Read it again. You might notice that once Abraham gets down to 5, you know, I mean, he starts at like 500 or 1,000, cuts it down, you know, 150, 20, you know, and God kind of placates it for a while. But then he said, what if there's just 5 good people? Would you destroy them for that? And God says, no. Now go. That was it. There was no more, what if only 2, or what if only... Nope, that was it. Get out. Okay, if there's 5 people there, I won't destroy them. Go away now. Go about your way, Abraham. We're done talking. Okay, so, number 1, it's a stupid argument to begin with, you know. But anyway, just throwing that out there. Look, if you are a religious person, and you know, again, I include Jewish and Christian people in this. I know there's rifts between those two faiths. I think it's kind of stupid that there is that rift, but still, there is. I understand that. You know, there's a lot of really backwards, screwed up Christians that really hate Jewish people, and, you know, and I'm sure, again, I mean, given the fact you've got people at Klan rally going, I'm a Baptist preacher, you know, and you know, the frickin' Catholic Crusades that killed a bunch of Jews in the Holy Land and everything, you know, you can understand there's probably some Jews that have some animosity towards Christians and the Gentiles and all as well. So, you know, it's an unfortunate rift that, you know, I would think, you know, would be great to heal. Some people, you know, there are some people who are really trying to bring that together, and that's good. But anyway, so that's mainly what I'm saying, though, when I'm saying religious people, I mean, you know, Jewish and Christian alike, you know, and the Jewish people, you should really know how the whole covenant and, you know, turning against God and everything works. You know, if the Christians don't know, they should, but I mean, it seems like so many want to deny or ignore the Old Testament and everything, so, you know, for whatever stupid reason that is, but still, you know, you should know how this plays out, and, I mean, it's just, we could really, throughout the West, again, you know, especially America, they're the one that made the covenant, but if you go through the whole thing, and, you know, it talks about in ancient Israel, you know, these people are your cousins, and, you know, they're linked to you. Do you not think you're going to share their fate? And they're the ones that fell first. And, you know, if you don't think that there is a blood, spiritual, and ideological link between the United States and the nations of Europe, Canada, Australia, whatever else in the West, then you probably don't know much about history or anything. But, so, you know, I'd say the whole West is looking at a pretty rough potential future, you know. And, again, this probably applies to all those people in all those nations, but, you know, I will say it especially for those in America. Again, I've said it before, I'll say it again. We may really be getting near the point where, you know, it's divided you fall and united you stand and all that, right? Because we're so spread out across the country right now that you see, you know, it's hard for these religious and moral people to really make a huge difference in a lot of places, you know. And so, I mean, you know, if you're in California and you're a really upstanding, religious, moral type of person, I mean, that's a hard place to get by. You know, it's just going to be because you're way outnumbered. And so, you know, I really think it's getting to a point where, again, this, you know, you're going to have to change. You know, I mean, what? Has there been 3 or 4 different Chick-fil-A's banned at different cities? I mean, even in Texas, that's not a good sign. You know, I mean, it's really getting to a bad point. And you know, people of faith, to those of you out there listening, you really, really, really might want to start coming together. And I don't just mean like in the spirit. I mean seriously, you might want to start getting close to each other. in proximity. Because again, if the worst does come to the worst in this place and there's no other solution, God in Israel did ensure a remnant, and, so long as there are decent people in these places in the West, I'm sure he'll want to spare them. But, once it gets to a big kind of judgment like that, it's big, sweeping death kind of thing. So, if you're just spread out and in the middle of all the other people, you're liable to go down. In fact, you're liable to go down before that, looking at the way laws and things are now. So, just some advice to those of faith, come together, and especially if you're in, a California, a New York, if you're in one of these other states where they're passing a, up to or past birth abortion law, maybe you should consider moving to a state that's passing something like, except in case of danger to the mother, or one of these heartbeat bill abortion laws, right? Maybe people of faith need to start congregating a little bit in, wherever. I don't care. South, north, east, west, whatever part of the country, it really doesn't matter. It's time probably you start coming together a little bit. And, so I would really heavily suggest there's 3 main ways you're going to be able to do this. One is going to have to be migration. Yes, you may have to leave your home and go somewhere else, and I would heavily suggest praying about that a lot. Maybe the place you're in is okay, maybe the city you're in is okay, maybe the state you're in even will be okay. But, you really might want to start praying about that and really listen to it and keep on it until you really feel you got an answer that you understand. Through a lot of prayer and everything myself, I've come to understand that the state of Tennessee, I started with just like a part of it and then got to the whole local city here and then spread it out to the whole state. And so, this state does have a chance. And then, I kind of doubted that for a little while. And then, we happen to see a governor get elected here whose major points in the campaign were, I'm a Christian person and I've went on all these missions and tried to help people, and I'm flawed, but I'm going to try to do what's best for people. And, compared to all the rest of the candidates who seem to be trying to out-Trump each other, Until he came on and started doing good in the polls, and suddenly, the polls say Jesus is good, yeah. And again, they start pulling Trump. I got my grandpa's Bible and all this crap, it's just, they didn't mention it at all until this guy came out of the race and actually started doing well. So, anyway, point is, you've got a guy now that's been put in the governorship, seems like a good, decent person, seems like it could be kind of, one of those people God brings up there and like, okay, here's your chance, here's your start, build around this, I'm not saying it's certain, so it doesn't just mean anybody half religious head to the state of Tennessee, but this potentially could be one of those places, so, but again, migration is potentially a big part of that. It's really something, I know it's a big kind of leap of faith thing, you're uprooting your life, and everything to do it, it's a big deal. That's why I say, really pray about it first and everything. Again, I won't tell you to just take my word on it, but really look at it, read your Bible, read the Old Testament if you're one of these Christians who hasn't done that much. Look at old Israel, look at the American history, look at the American covenant, understand that that's a thing, we're on a similar path, we're going to similar places, and we may end up seeing a similar fate. So, read that, understand that as a Christian or Jewish person. Understand where we're going, where we may very well be headed here, right? And so migration is one, and again, like the governor here, political change is one. Okay, for you people of faith, if you're going to have your, cities and states or whatever that you're going to try and build up and really turn things around and make them more, moral or religiously sound by law type of things, if you're going to actually preserve that and push that and make a difference in that, there's going to have to be political change. You have to go out there and really support these candidates who are decent, and, let's try to have a little more in-depth study of them than just anybody that walks out and says, I've got a Bible, Maybe, really try and find good and decent people, not just people that say they are, but, try and do that. And if no one else will run, maybe you need to, And again, I don't care if you're the pastor of a church. Go. What good is your church going to be if everything around it's blown up and burned away because, you know, you let the whole place around you go to hell, right? So, you know, I don't care. Church is supposed to be about the congregation, not just the man leading it anyway, so, or the man or woman, I will say, you know. Let's be fair and equal. There's plenty of women preachers and priests and stuff now, so, you know. Either way, get out there, you know. And, yeah, and I will say, I guess the third thing mainly is, number one, for all of you, you really, again, need to understand exactly what God is and what God's about. Because I'm sorry, you know, and especially for you that want to say, oh, we've got plenty of good people and religious people in this country. If you read the actual laws of God, a lot of religious people not following them at all, not even trying to. And you make up all these excuses. You say, you know, Jesus changed the law. Well, that's funny because one of the first things Jesus said, like one of the absolute first quotes of him in the New Testament is, I'm not here to change the law, and it will not change one teeny bit until the end of time. So, you know, that's kind of a crap argument. So, you know, as you sit there with your lobster stuffed full of shrimp wrapped in a slice of ham, you know, with bacon dripped all over it, you know, maybe you want to consider that, yeah, the Old Testament law does still kind of apply. You know, it still does exist. So, something else you might want to get, you know. So, for all you churches and people, again, not all of you are in church. I've not been in a church or a part of a church because, well, number one, I was really casual Christian, as I call it. You know, wasn't really a big deal. If somebody asked what I was, I'd say Christian, but I knew no. You know, it was nothing. It was just like, you know, kind of a random self-identifier. But so I didn't really care to go to church then because it wasn't a big deal. And now, you know, that I've grown more in it and everything, now it's hard for me to consider going to a church because it'd be hard to find one that I would really agree with at this point. But, you know. So for all you religious people and churches and whatever, and this is not just in America or in the West or, you know, any of you. I don't care, you know, wherever you are, if you're in, you know, South Korea or Japan or, you know, Russia or Africa or wherever, you really want to make sure you're doing things right. Because, yeah, I mean, you think about it, even if you're not in the West and this does come down and there is an actual, you know, big-time kind of judgment that comes down here, that's really going to shake up the world, and there's going to be a lot of upheaval and chaos all around. So I think people of faith everywhere really want to be on their toes and, you know, making sure you got stuff right. Just saying. But, again, for those of you here, get yourself right, make sure you're right, really get in the law, and do it as a group, you know. Instead of just sitting there preaching the same old sermons people have heard 15 times, bring them in and just start going through the law every week and say, where are we at? What are we doing wrong as an organization, as a church, and as individuals? You know, what are we doing wrong? How are we not following God's laws, and how can we better follow God's laws, right? Get yourself straight. Make sure you're doing it right. And at that point, once you're pretty solid on what you believe, I know there's bound to be some differences in everything because there's 50 freaking different translations of it, because somewhere along the way somebody decided, let's just, you know, not pay all that much attention to how we translate it or something. I don't know, but whatever the issue is with that, you know, heck, it's why I'd like to get like a English Torah or something, because, I mean, if anything should have it as correct as possible, it should be that, right? Because it, you know, it's Old Testament law, you know, so it should be in there. But anyway, make sure you got that right. Make sure you got yourself straight on that. And then you may want to send out missionaries, not to faraway places, but to places right closer to home. I know people make fun of the Mormons for that kind of stuff. Oh, they go door to door and, hey, you heard the good news. But yeah, you really might want to do that. Start just going around. Have anybody and everybody, you know, a part of your church, not just preachers or not just, you know, kids really, you know, taken up in the spirit. But anybody. You know, you got a day off, you got nothing else you're doing, go down to a youth center. Talk to some kids, you know. Whatever. Talk to people. Go, you know, whatever, homeless people, just people anywhere, you know, and go out there and be kind of missionaries, be that salt of the earth that actually makes a difference and makes a change in your community and helps people understand things better. You know, if you want to save anything, if you want anything of these countries, these cities, these states, whatever to be left, you're going to have to go put the work in. That's something not a lot of people are willing to do these days. Really, I think that's why you got a Donald Trump. It's not because he's some great conservative guy or anything. He's out there to punch people in the face, and, you know, he's a king. He knows it all. He can do the hard work. We don't have to do it. We're tired. Life sucks. So we quit, you know. Whatever. I mean, people don't want to put up the work. They don't want to put up the work of freaking maintaining a country, a free country. It takes a lot of work from its citizenry. Hadn't been put in. Hadn't been put in the voting. You know, you're not looking at your candidates. You're just hitting the button to the letter that, you know, the party you represent or identify with. And, you know, yeah, the government sucks now because you've done nothing. You haven't done your job. For generations, and it's not just people now, there's people that have died already. People that have not done their job to upkeep this free country. Okay? That's part of it. You know? And again, you look at the youth and the kids, and I keep harping on that. You know, there's got to be a lot of parents out there not doing their job, not putting in the work it takes to bring up a better generation of kids than you've got, you know, out here that don't know anything. And again, you know, Southern thing, God bless their hearts, because a lot of these kids just never had a chance. I mean, geez. I went through the education system fairly-ish recently, and I mean, yeah, I understand. I understand why they think the way they do. If that's the only education they got, if these teachers and everything were the only ones talking to them about this, there's no wonder they think the real world is just this chaotic thing they keep pushing and talking about, you know. I mean, I can't blame them at all, but anyway, again, it's people laying down on the job, and if you're going to be a religious person, a Christian person, again, it's part of the job. You got to put some work in, all right? You got to get out there. It's the old thing with the guy, the talons of gold or whatever, right? Jesus gives every guy a talent of silver or whatever, you know. Let's just say silver because I don't remember exactly off the top of my head. So he gives everybody one, and this one guy takes his, he buries it, he sticks it in the ground, he keeps it safe. And then the guy comes back, and he's like, all right, what have you done? He's like, I got my piece of silver. I saved it for you. And then all these other people come, and they're like, you know, they've got 50 pieces of silver and all because they took it out and invested it and grew upon it and built upon it. And, of course, again, it's not, you know, a lesson in investment banking. What they're talking about there is you have your faith. That's your piece of silver, your faith. You've been brought to God. You've been led to, you know, this belief. That's a great thing. But you're not supposed to just bury it inside and say, well, I'm good. My soul's solid. I ain't going to worry about anybody else. I'm just going to protect me, and I'm going to get through this life. And then when I go up and see God again, he's going to be happy that I still got my piece. You know, that ain't what it's about. You're supposed to spread the word. You're supposed to invest your faith, if you will, and actually spread it. And bring others into the fold and help them to see the way. You know, because there's a lot of bad crap up there. It's rough. You know, and people are lost, and I'm sorry. Again, not just people. A lot of churches are laying down on the job. And that's why there's so many people turned away from it. That's why there's so many people lost about it and don't understand. So there's a lot of you out there. You're going to have to really change your lifestyle. You're really going to have to be more than casual Christian if you want to survive this. If you want to make something, if you want to save anything of these places you call home, you're going to have to put a hell of a lot of work in. Alright? And this is a serious thing. I know it's a bit of a turn off of where we started with this video, but it is important and it is related. So, you know, and this is a message, I'll probably throw this in at the end of some other videos at this point, because it's an important part of what I've been talking about and will continue to talk about, because, you know, that's what I feel I need to be going with right now. So, you know, you need to get out there. Alright, I've said it all. If you missed something, you want to go back and play the last few minutes again, fine. Do what you need to do. But I think I've laid it out for the most part, you know, and if you have got it all, I'll go ahead and wrap up, right? Because we're probably pushing an hour or so now or something. So anyway, taking up enough of your time on it. Ha ha. You know, no abortion, no sex. Ain't that silly? Remember when this video was funny at first? Anyway, it's hard for me to keep it light anymore. The problems are too big, they're too pressing, you know? It's hard. I try to be fun and cool and light, but damn. It's hard out here, man. Anyway, anyway, get it together. Alright, people, seriously. And for if there's any of you who are not religious and everything still listening to this, well, hey, good on you. At least you're willing to listen to another side. Thanks for that. Good on you. I really do, you know, I will compliment you greatly for that, for hearing out somebody that you strongly disagree with in some way. Really, that's lacking in society today. But anyway, otherwise, thank you all for listening and all. If you're catching it on the YouTube, of course, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell thing so, you know, you can get notifications and see more of our videos. And, of course, feel free to check out some of the old ones. I'm going to clean that up a little bit again. The audio on the old series I did is kind of poor, and it's poor in a lot of other things, so I'm probably going to recycle some of these old things and clean it up a little bit. But still, you know, there's some good stuff in there. There's some fun you can do. And, of course, also, you know, you can check us out on the Facebook, where it's probably a little more active right now. Just because. Trying to work on some things, maybe bring some more people in, you know, so we can actually post more, because I'm not online a ton, just saying. So it's kind of hurting the reach and the page and everything, because you know, I mean, you go for a week or two at a time with nothing, you know, Facebook kind of decides, okay, well, you're not important anymore. Then you got to post for like a week, and then, you know, just to get it back up to kind of normal, and then if you stop, well, you're screwed. So anyway, trying to bring on some more people. Hopefully that'll work out, and we'll be a little more, you know, current and continual with our posts. But otherwise, again, if you're on the YouTube, you know what to do. If you're on the Facebook, hit the like and share these things, share the video and everything. And I keep saying this because we do not pay for Facebook ads, so of course our reach blows. If you actually ever want to hear anything from this channel, this page, from me, again, I hope you will go to the page, go up to the top, like it if you haven't, hit the following button, make sure it switches from follow to following, so you're actually receiving our posts, and then click on that following tab, go under that, and hit see first, and or get notifications, depending on just how involved you want to be, and that will help you to actually see our posts. Because again, if you don't do that, you're liable to not see them at all, because we're not paying for you to see them, and if we don't, Facebook really doesn't care to ever, you know, send us to anybody. It's just how they work, you know. Again, is it a conservative, anti-conservative thing? I don't know. I know it's a money game, and I ain't paying, so I ain't playing very well, you know. That's all that is for the most part. But so we're gonna try and combat that. More posts, and hopefully those of you listening and watching and reading and all will do your part in that, and, you know, like, share, follow us, get the notifications, all that crap, all that good stuff. Keep up with I Am Aware news and all of our stuff. So, I think that's it. Kind of on Twitter too, but that's been slow lately, and, well, again, maybe once we get more people on it, we might pick back up on some of that other stuff too. For now, that's all. Thanks for watching and doing all that other social media crap. Much love. God bless. I'm out.